Welcome to The Amazing Race, starring Connor Miller and Amanda Hassel. This episode will be covering chapters 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4. Contestants will need to know all properties of parallelograms in order to complete the clue cards. Properties of a parallelogram include: two sets of opposite sides are parallel, two sets of opposite sides are congruent, two sets of opposite angles are congruent, adjacent angles are supplementary, diagonals bisect each other, diagonals share a common midpoint, and one set of opposite sides are both parallel and congruent. Special parallelograms include rectangles, a rhombus, and a square. These are parallelograms that have their own special properties in addition to the parallelogram properties. Properties of a rectangle include four right angles and diagonals are congruent. Properties of a rhombus are four congruent sides, diagonals are perpendicular, diagonals bisect the opposite angles. Properties of a square are four congruent sides, four right angles, diagonals are perpendicular, diagonals are congruent, and diagonals bisect the opposite angles. Our contestants are already at their starting places, so let the race begin.
Look, there it is.
Here's our first clue.
Okay, so for this problem, first we have to solve for the measure of angle WVU. And since we know that UV is congruent and parallel to XW, that means that UVX and VXW are opposite interior angles, so they are congruent. So that means that UVX is 17 degrees, so 17 plus 29 equals 46, so UVW is 46 degrees. So next we have to solve for the measure of angle XUV. And since we know that adjacent angles are supplementary and UVW is equal to 46, we have to do 180 minus 46, which is 134. So we know that XUV is 134 degrees. Next we have to solve for the length of WV, and since we know that opposite sides are congruent, WV is congruent to UX, so WV is 24. Next we have to solve for UW, and since we know that diagonals bisect each other, we know that UY is congruent to YW, so UW is 30.
Go to the bridge.
I found the clue!
This looks like a tough one.
Classify the special quadrilateral, then find the values of x and y. So, this is a two-part problem. For the first part, we have to classify the special quadrilateral in the diagram. The diagram shows us that there's four congruent sides and four right angles. With this information, we know that this diagram must be a square because squares have four congruent sides and four right angles in addition to other properties of a parallelogram. For the second part, we have to find the values of x and y. And since we know that all four sides are congruent, 3x is equal to 5x minus 4. To solve this equation, first we have to add 4 on both sides. After this, we're left with 3x plus 4 is equal to 5x. Then we have to subtract 3x from both sides. Now we are left with 4 is equal to 2x. Finally, we have to divide by 2 on both sides, which cancels out on this side. So 4 divided by 2 is equal to x, which is 2. So x equals 2. Next we have to solve for y. And since all the sides are congruent, 2y plus 4 is equal to 5y plus 1. To solve this equation, first we have to subtract 1 from both sides. Now we are left with 2y plus 3 is equal to 5y. After this, we have to subtract 2y from both sides. Now we are left with 3 is equal to 3y. Finally, we have to divide by 3 on both sides. So y is equal to 1.
Go to the pool.
It's the last clue.
First, we have to find the measure of angle QPR. And since we know that diagonals bisect opposite angles, QPR is congruent to angle RPS. So QPR is 30 degrees. Next, we have to solve for the measure of angle QTP. And since we know that diagonals are perpendicular, angle QTP is 90 degrees. Next, we have to solve for RP. And since we know that diagonals bisect each other, RT is congruent to TP. So TP is also 6. This means that RP is 6 plus 6, which is 12. Next, we have to solve for QT. And since we know that angle QTP is 90 degrees and angle QPT is 30 degrees, that means angle TQP must be 60 degrees. So this means that this triangle is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So the short leg, which is QT, is x, and the long leg, which is TP, is x radical 3, and the hypotenuse, which is QP, is 2x. So to solve for x, we have to do 6 is equal to x radical 3, and so we have to divide by radical 3, and since you can't have a radical on the denominator, you have to rationalize the denominator, so x is equal to 6 over radical 3 times radical 3 over radical 3 equals 6 radical 3 over 3. Next, you have to simplify the fraction. So 6 divided by 3 is 2, so it's 2 radical 3. So QT is 2 radical 3.
Our contestants have finished the race. Well, that wraps up this week's episode of The Amazing Race. Tune in next week when we solve for circles.